star or using your mute button, that would be really great so we can minimize the background noise. All right, so today's webinar, Brenda's going to go ahead and advance the slide to slide 3, where we're going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. I know that we, I sent out an email beforehand letting you know that we're going to focus in on this year's CQI Learning Collaboratives, which is really going to be the heart of our time together today. So we're going to do some talking about those learning collaboratives in terms of the topic, which you heard about at the grantee meeting, but we'll go over those again. We're going to share the model for improvement with you, the introduction. So what does this learning collaborative model look like? Many of you have seen it. Some of you have not because you're new to this piece of the Michigan Home Visiting Initiative. So we're going to go over that in detail and tell you a little bit about how things will be structured this year. There's going to be a lot that's the same as it has been in the past, but there will be a couple of things that are different. So we want to be sure that we go over that with all of you. We'll talk about the collaborative timeline for the year, as well as expectations. So expectations in terms of what you can expect from MPHI and MDHHS, as well as what the expectations are for the collaborative teams. So that would be all of your teams. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of pre-work that we are going to ask you all to do prior to the kickoff of the collaboratives on November 12th. At the end of the webinar today, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the Michigan Home Visiting Initiative QI requirements, just to remind you all of what those are. We'll talk about the next steps and reminders that we have for you. And we'll have time at the end of the webinar for additional questions, but I would invite you all to ask questions today throughout the webinar as they pop up. Again, don't hesitate to unmute your line and ask a question and or use the chat function to ask a question, and we'll be sure to respond to all the questions that are asked during today's webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into the content and start talking about the learning collaboratives for this year. As you all heard at the grantee meeting, we will have 2 different learning collaboratives running this year. One will be focused on home visiting program enrollment, and the second will be focused on home visiting program retention. And you all, like you have in the past, are going to have the opportunity to look at your data, think about what your data are telling you, what story they're depicting for your team, and you'll be able to let us know which collaborative your team prefers to participate in, being either the collaborative that's focused on enrollment or the one that's focused on retention. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I'll let you know that I will be sending out an email to ask for you to send in your preference. That'll be part of your pre-work. So we'll get to that a little bit later on, but we will be asking for your preference in terms of participation for your team in whichever collaborative your team prefers based on where you are with program implementation and what your data are telling you. But to give you a little bit more an idea behind what each collaborative will sort of look like. If you're participating in the enrollment collaborative, you'll have the chance to work on things like thinking about your referral networks, think about the process that you use to get referrals for your home visiting program, about your enrollment process and how that plays out for your program, as well as thinking about support for enrollment. So those are just some of the types of things that you might focus your work on within that collaborative. Within the one that's focused on retention, there are a couple of points there that you might consider focusing on, being, early intense engagement, knowing that if we get families engaged in the program up front, they're more likely to stay in the program and continue services for the duration that we would hope they would continue services for. Also building on family strengths, making sure that family needs are met, and building trusting relationships. So you'll see some themes throughout the retention collaborative that are really focused on that family engagement piece, since that's really what overall contributes to retention within home visiting programs. But we wanted to give you a little bit more of an idea of what's kind of going to be involved in both of those collaborative topic areas. So I want to kind of hear from all of you in terms of, what excites you about these topics and why are they important. So we're going to spend a little time now we're going to answer this question, why are program enrollment and retention important in QI Learning Collaborative topics. So I'm going to go ahead and invite you all, if you have some thoughts and ideas, to please share those thoughts and ideas with us now. Brenda's going to take notes so we can kind of build out this slide for the group in terms of thinking about why are these topics important? What do they mean to home visiting? So please feel free to either use the chat function or unmute your line and share your thoughts.
From Saginaw HFA, and our team took a look at the problem statement in September during that learning collaborative, or developed the problem statement and really gave some thought to what are some of the biggest issues right now, and theirs was the consistency in folks or parents being available, and the no-shows, no calls is what they're calling it for assessment. So this is giving us an opportunity to really take a look at that and look at ways that we can better ensure that families will understand the importance of the visits, the need of the visits, and be able to why would be those no-shows. And of course, this is something that's not specific to the HFA visits, but this is something that will be able to help families in our community as we try to reach them for other services.
So much, Pam. I think those are two really important pieces that really get at that family engagement piece. So, why are families not engaging in a home visit schedule that is set out for families to engage in based on where they are in their program enrollment, and really underscoring those benefits of home visiting for families. So making sure families have that goal planning in mind as you're working through home visits with families, so that they have a clear understanding of what are the benefits of the program to them and what can they expect to receive from you, and what would they like to get out of the program as well. So I think those are two really great points. Thank you so much, Pam, for sharing. Other thoughts? Patricia had a really good thought. She says that as a new program, this helps us develop a strong foundation and allows us to continually keep a pulse on how things are going, and if they're headed in the right direction. Patricia, I think that is a really great thought and a great reason as to why this is important. As you're building your program and enrolling families and, getting up toward what your caseload expectations are for your program, this really does help you know whether or not you're heading in the right direction. And I'm thinking that, some of our newer programs probably will really want to focus in on that enrollment piece and how things are going with that piece. After all, if we don't have families enrolled, then we don't have a home visiting program. We need families to be in that program in order to actually move our program along. So I think that that's a really great observation, and thank you for sharing, Patricia. Joe shared something. I'm going to actually let Brenda read it out loud because she's seeing some things in the chat box that I'm not seeing.
Okay, Jody shares that it's important to look at new and untapped referral sources in an effort to reach families that may otherwise not be thought of.
Excellent. Yes, yes, absolutely. Really getting at building those referral networks and making sure you have good connections within the community that can lead you to connecting with the right families and those families that really need housing services, and you may not be reaching through other outlets. So really kind of harnessing the power of having a good referral network to help support referrals into your program. Thank you, Jody. It's Kelly sent something and she says you're not able to hear the webinar, you're getting music in the background. Is anybody else getting music in the background? Maybe we'll try to send you out the number again, and maybe you can try to call in again. We'll go ahead and send that to you and see if that might fix the problem. We have to change the number for the webinar, and I sent that out on Monday, but perhaps maybe that's part of what's going on. Also about why these topics are important.
What's the number?
Okay. I'm not hearing anything, but I think that, oh, was someone going to say something?
Rob, Cynthia, and I guess I just think about it. Opportunity really gives us a chance to examine the sort of things that we are doing or not doing, either before we get in the home or while we're in the home, and to really examine, what our practices are, and are our practices truly family friendly, or are there some things that we need to look at and examine a little bit more closely about, how we're working with families. The other thing that I think comes to my mind is kind of the obvious, and that is our obligation to be, good stewards of the money and ensure that we are serving the number of families that we are being funded to serve. And on the other hand, we also want to be able to demonstrate that this program is a good investment for our tax dollars, and the only way that we can do that is by showing that we are truly serving the numbers that we are to be serving.
Good point, Cynthia. Thank you so much for sharing those points. And I think that, with both of the topics, it's important to think of the perspective, from the families, from the program, but then as well as, what we are obligated to, and we want to be good stewards of the funding that we've received as a state, and make sure that, we are enrolling the families that we have out to say that we can enroll, and we do believe we can enroll. And we have full program caseloads. So I think that those are really, really great observations. And I think everybody offered up some good thoughts and ideas about why these topics are important to your programs. And I would encourage you, as you're looking at your data as a team and thinking about which collaborative you might like to participate in this coming year, to really think about, the importance of both collaboratives. What are your data telling you? What's present with your data, and harness that story and really make some movement within your program in this coming year in a positive direction, the direction that you all are hoping to work on as a team. So keep these things in mind as you continue to think about which collaborative you might want to participate in as a team. Share with you now the model that we are using for the Quality Improvement Learning Collaborative, and a little bit about what a Quality Improvement Learning Collaborative is. I know some of you are familiar with this model because you have participated in the home visiting coin. I also know that others of you have participated in the learning collaboratives that we've held for the last couple of years and have some experience using this model. but we have some on the phone today that this is new. So we thought it would be really beneficial to spend a little bit of time looking at this and talking about it so that you all have a good idea of what to expect. So what you see on this slide is, from start to finish, the Learning Collaborative model that we will be using to run these Quality Improvement Learning Collaboratives this year. And when we think about Quality Improvement Learning Collaboratives, I think a couple important points to make about them is that they are pretty widely used in order to translate what works, so things that we've found that have worked, or things that have been found in the research that work, so that there's evidence around them, into practice. Healthcare has been using Quality Improvement Learning Collaboratives for quite some time now, and they're really starting to infiltrate into public health as well as home visiting, especially with the home visiting coin being the first national Quality Improvement Collaborative that's happening around home visiting program. So I think it's a really exciting time in home visiting, and it's really neat that in Michigan we've been using this model for a while and running Quality Improvement Learning Collaboratives. Really the point of having a collaborative is to bring practitioners together so that we can share insights that we have into common challenges, look at gaps that we have, and figure out how to really close those gaps and test some ideas for improvement. So, if you're having challenges with program enrollment, thinking about what are some of those best practices in enrolling families in home visiting programs, and what are the key pieces that you need in place in order to do that successfully, and how can you improve the program. If families are exiting your program earlier than you would like, and you want to address that, then thinking about, what are some best practices for keeping families engaged in the program, keeping them engaged early when they get enrolled so that their interest is really kept and as you move through the program, and keeping them engaged throughout the program. So this model is really going to help us together work on these shared topic areas of enrollment and retention over the next about 10 months. So at this point in time, we have already started working through this model. We have selected topics, which you all are aware of. We've spent some time gathering information from experts, including all of you. So if you'll remember back to the grantee meeting in September, we talked about how we held a circle discussion with families from the parent group that Bryn Fortune over at ECIC gathers on a regular basis. So from parents who are receiving home visiting services, we heard from them about, what keeps them engaged, what really drives engagement in home visiting programs, and what should we be attentive to from that perspective. We spent some time at the local leadership group meeting in September and collected some information from the local leadership groups within your communities around how they supported home visiting program outreach efforts in the past, what has been successful, and what do they believe they can continue to do in order to support outreach in the future. And we collected information from all of you. We started sort of talking about it at the grantee meeting, but then we collected the information virtually, where you all responded with successful strategies that you have used for outreach, enrollment, and retention in the past that we should consider for our change package. What we're going to do with all the expert information that we've collected, which includes all the information from you, information from the home visiting coin that has been going on for about the past 15 months, as well as information from other experts that we have in state who are veteran home visitors and such, so that we can really build some comprehensive change packages for the work that we're doing in Michigan. Which really brings us to that first circle on the diagram of developing the change package and planning for learning session 1. And that is where we are right now. At MPHI, we are working on putting together this change package, which I'll show you an example of in just a minute. I'm sure that to some of you this language probably seems a little bit foreign at the moment, but you'll see the connection here in just a minute. But essentially this is a playbook. This is a way for you to look at root causes and really identify where your program needs to do some work in whichever collaborative you end up participating in. And the change package will include lots of change ideas. So ideas that you can lift from that change package and implement and try out and test out and see how those work for your program. So you going to hide your quality improvement work during the time of the Learning Collaborative. The circle on the slide has participants and completing pre-work, which is something that we're going to talk about today, and what we're doing today too through this webinar is doing a little bit of pre-work together in order to prepare for our first learning session, which is going to take place on November 12th. So that's our first green box. Learning sessions are essentially time for us to come together and do some shared learning around the tools that we've put together in order to support the Learning Collaborative work this year. And as we get into the Learning Collaborative work, we'll really be hearing a lot from you all, a lot about what you've tested, what's worked well, what you maybe have made some adaptations to based on what you found out with your tests. As we move through the Learning Collaboratives, we will have 3 in-person meetings, the first taking place on November 12th. In the meeting on November 12th and the second meeting, which takes place in April on the 21st, we'll have you all in an action period conducting plan, do, study, act cycles. I think one of the things that you'll really see as a theme throughout our time together today is that we really want you to focus on what small changes can you make and test and see whether or not they result in improvement that you're looking for. So you're going to keep your PDSA cycles really, really small and just bite off a tiny piece. And we have some good examples to show you today so you can kind of see how this is going to play out over time. But what will happen is that in between each of those learning sessions, there will be an action period. And that's the time when you are back at your program offices and you are trying things out as a team in whichever collaborative area you have decided to work. You'll notice that following learning session 3, which will take place in September, there's another action period noted. And the reason for that is not that you will be actually formally doing that action period and submitting any formal documentation on that. But one of the important things to remember about quality improvement is that we want to really do it on a continuous and ongoing basis. Some of you may learn some really great lessons from the work that you do within this collaborative, and you may continue to test some small changes even after the final learning session of these collaboratives that we're running this year. So we just want to remind you that you want to think about, as you're moving forward in your learning collaborative work, how you're going to sustain gains that you've made during that collaborative work, and how you're going to continue making small improvements in order to get to the bigger outcome change that you're hoping to see. So that's a bit about the model, which I'm actually going to break down here in the next few slides. Before I do that, I want to also point out this black box on the model that's titled supports. So as we have always done in the past, there will be lots of supports in order to get through these learning collaboratives. All of MPHI will be available via email and phone in order to really provide you with guidance and support and coaching, whatever your team needs as you're working through your quality improvement projects during the action periods. And we'll also have you doing some monthly data tracking and monthly updates. And the purpose of this is really to keep track of where we are, and as we make these small changes, how it's improving our data and what our numbers are looking like, but also to really share with others. So one of the things we really want to make sure that we're able to do this year is share the learning more on a just-in-time basis. So with the monthly updates, you'll be able to see monthly updates from everybody within your collaborative, and as people find neat things to test out and try out, and they sound like they might work for your team, that might be something that you'll want to consider as you're conducting your plan, do, study, act cycle. So the model for improvement, this is really what's happening within this larger picture that I just showed you of the Quality Improvement Learning Collaborative. We are essentially using our 3 key questions that we have always used for our quality improvement work. So what are we trying to accomplish? how will we know that a change is an improvement? And what changes can we make that result in an improvement in order to make some changes in our program? So, with the learning sessions, we are going to spend time together really getting started and really working through these three key questions. With the first key question, what are we trying to accomplish? We are going to have lots of ideas, methods, and ways to get started during the learning session. So what you expect at the very first learning session is you will be introduced to the change package for your collaborative as well as the measurement strategy, and we'll spend some time walking through those different pieces and talking about them and answering questions and really working through them as a larger collaborative. You'll have some time set aside to meet as a team and do some concrete work on getting some planning in place for your first PSA cycle that you're going to run during that first action period. And have some time for reporting out. So being able to share those plans with your peers and talk with one another. I think one of the things that we've heard over the past several years is that you all really enjoy that time being able to connect with one another, talk about the different changes that you're thinking about testing and getting feedback from one another, so that we're really doing that shared learning. So the first learning session will really have the focus of getting through introducing the different materials that will help you make changes and run your PSA cycles, as well as some concrete time to really work on your PDSA cycles. And we're working through these questions. So what we're trying to accomplish is going to help provide guidance for teams. We know that a change is an improvement. That's going to get at our measurement strategy. And what changes can we make that will result in improvement is really going to get at our change package. So thinking about those overarching contextual pieces for the collaborative is going to help us work through those three key questions at our first meeting together. We'll launch into those action periods. So I want you a little bit more about the three key questions. So in terms of what are we trying to accomplish, what we're going to do during our time together is two things. First, before the meeting, you're going to do a little bit of pre-work in deciding which collaborative you want to participate in as a team. So you'll be selecting a topic of focus, either enrollment or retention. Then, when we come together, we will share the overarching collaborative aims with you for each of those collaboratives. So if you're participating in the enrollment collaborative, then there will be an overarching collaborative aim that we're working toward in that collaborative. If you're participating in the retention one, there will be an overarching collaborative aim as well, as there has been in the past for all of our learning collaborative activities. And again, that aim really focuses on the outcome that we're hoping to achieve through the work that we're doing together over the next 10 months. We know that a change is an improvement. Again, this really gets at our measurement strategy. And this is a layer that we're adding this year that we think will be really helpful to all of you. So we are developing outcome, process, and balancing measures for each of the topic areas. So there will be no more than 8 measures for the topic area. And these will be measures that you're tracking on an ongoing basis that will tell you how they're going with the tests that you are testing within your program. So everybody will be collecting shared data so that we can really speak to overall how things are going with the collaborative, as well as give you timely data so that you can look at data on a month-to-month basis and understand how things are going within your program and what story those data are telling you and where you might need to go next with your improvement work. 3, what changes can we make that will result in an improvement? And this is the change package. And within the change package, you're going to see some root causes, which are, really what are those primary and secondary drivers that really make things happen in each of these areas within home visiting programs, coupled with key ideas that you can test out and see how they work within your program in order to get toward working toward that change that you're looking to make. So if you're looking to increase enrollment or looking to increase retention of families within your programs. the change package piece, as we said at the grantee meeting back in September, that is a new piece as well, but we think that it'll be a good piece and really help you all as you are working toward making improvements during action periods. A little bit more about what is a change package. A change package is really a specific document that helps provide specific ideas for an improvement area that you're working on. So there will be two different change packages. There'll be one for the enrollment collaborative, and there'll be one for the retention collaborative. So you'll have your own change packages depending on which collaborative you're working in. And within each of those change packages, you are going to see an aim statement, that SMART aim, and that is going to be the overall collaborative aim that we're collectively working toward together as a set of teams participating in a collaborative. And then from there, you'll see some change concepts, which are many times referred to as primary drivers. And these are, again, common strategies that can be put in place to really help address the root cause of the problem. So, you know, where is your sticking point as a program as you look at your process for enrollment, or as you look at your process for that's close to heart for retaining families? You know, where do you feel like there are gaps? Where could more work be done in order to gain the improvement that you're looking for? With the primary drivers also come key changes. So these are secondary drivers. That's the language that's used. And these are really specific areas within that overarching primary driver where key changes could be made to address the root cause. Which I'm going to show you a picture of a package in a minute, which will hopefully help this make a bit more sense. There are specific change ideas, and these are really your improvement theories. So the if-then statements that we're all used to working with and really identifying where we want to do some more work and what we're going to test out as part of our cycle. These will provide you with a menu of different ideas, different changes that you could try out and make in order to get toward the improvement that you're looking for in your program. I'm going to show you a change package. And this is just a sample change package. This is not the change package that we're working with, but we went ahead and pulled one from the home visiting coin to give you all an idea of what a change package will look like for our work. So you can see over on the far left that the SMART aim is there for this particular change package. And this change package is focused on family engagement. The SMART aim is increased by 25% the average proportion of expected in-person contacts between home visitor and family that are completed. So they're looking for really, you know, increasing that service dosage piece of home visiting. You'll see that right next to that aim statement, there are the primary drivers. So again, these are the primary areas of work. So the primary pieces that really drive having a robust system that supports family engagement within this specific aim. And those being timely enrollment of appropriate referred families, so getting those families enrolled within a timely manner, retaining those families and really completing home visits with those families, so making sure that those families are actively engaged over time, and supporting home visitors and working with families, so having those supports in place that help make this all happen and work within a home visiting program. Next to the primary drivers, you'll see that there are the secondary drivers, and this is just breaking that larger topic area down into smaller pieces. So when you think about timely enrollment of referred families, you know, what really goes into that? So things like having a sufficient number of referral sources and referrals per source, referring families that really meet the program criteria, the program eligibility criteria, making sure that families are, you know, getting in within a shortened time frame in terms of receiving their home visit, so not having too much time pass between that referral and when the home visit first visit actually takes place. Identifying characteristics of families who don't enroll, so that you know that when you're doing your outreach efforts, you know, what are some characteristics of families that you don't seem to actually enroll, and what is that telling you about enrollment within your program? So on and so forth. Breaking that larger primary driver down into smaller pieces. we move to the right of the diagram, you'll see that drivers are broken down even smaller. So taking those secondary drivers and asking yourselves, what change can I make and test out and see how it works for my program in order to see some progress in this area. So those being things like outreach and education to referral sources so that you can make sure that eligible families are being referred to your programs. Developing intake guidance for assessment and eligibility so that everybody's on the same page and that's happening in a consistent manner across your program. Increasing the number of referral sources that are providing referrals into your program. So you can see as you get over to the specific ideas, those key changes, they really get more specific. And the intention behind that is that you can lift one right from the driver diagram and try it out and test it out and see how it works for your program. This is just an example, but the driver diagrams, the change packages for our work will look similar. Once you've actually gone through the process of identifying where you're going to do some work, you're really going to be using the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle methodology that we've been using for many years now to try things out and test out your changes. So you'll always start out with plan and think about, what is the objective of this cycle that I'm running? What questions am I hoping to answer with this cycle? And what are my predictions? So that's when you get at your if-then statement, your improvement theory. What do you predict will happen with testing the change that you're going to test? You always want to think about how you're going to carry out that test. So plan for that. So thinking about the who, what, where, when. So how will that happen within your program? Having a plan for data collection. And for, most of the projects that you work on, your data collection plan will really be very set because we'll have that measurement strategy in place and you'll be looking at key indicators over time to see how the changes that you're making are resulting in improvement and or maybe not moving the needle as much as you thought they would be within your program. When you get to the do stage, you actually you get to do something. So during this stage, you really want to carry out the plan that you set out to carry out in the plan stage. You want to document any problems or unexpected observations that pop up. So, thinking about, are there challenges that come up with other processes within our program based on the change that we've made? Are there kinks that we need to work out with the change that we're making that we might need to adapt in another quality or PDSA cycle? So thinking about things like that. And also watching your data on a regular, ongoing basis, which really carries us over nicely into the study stage, which is where we're going to really look at our data and think about, okay, we did this test, we collected some data, what are data telling us? How did things work? How did this all play out for us? You'll want to compare your data to the prediction that you made, so your improvement theory, your if-then statement. Of course, summarize what's learned. So really think about what did the team gain from doing this particular Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle. When you get to the Act stage, you're really thinking about, are you going to adapt this? Did it work really well? And we think that we should adapt it and make it part of regular program practice. Do you need, in terms of adapt, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Are there changes that we need to make before we're ready to say we can implement this as a program? So there might be some adaptations that pop up during your Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle that you can conduct. And you might want to make those changes and try something a little bit different out, tweak things the next time around. If you want to adopt, this would when you actually make it part of your program practice. You see the results that things worked really well, and you feel confident that keeping that small change in place is really going to be beneficial to your program, and so you decide that you really want to adopt it and keep it in place. Or you may decide that you want to abandon the change. You may decide that based on what happened and what you did with your tests, things just didn't work out as you expected. That's okay. As always, we encourage you to think about what did you learn as a team and how can you apply those learnings to another Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle and move on. And of course, you'll want to be thinking about what your next cycle is. Your next cycle may involve an adaptation from this cycle that you just completed. Next cycle may involve working on something completely different, depending on what the results of your PDSA cycle were. Helpful to provide an example here to kind of tie all of these pieces together, because I'm giving you all a lot of information and a lot of things to think about and digest, and I think it's always helpful when we kind of walk through an example. So we put together an example to kind of show you how this is going to work. And again, this is purely an example to give you an idea. So in terms of working through those three key questions, when we're looking at what we're trying to accomplish, we've selected a topic of home visiting program enrollment. We've set out an aim that by December 1st, 2015, the Sunny County Early Head Start program will increase program enrollment from 80% to 90%. And I should specify that this aim right here is really going to be one of your team-specific aims. So while we'll have that overall collaborative aim like we always have, you're going to set really specific aims for your Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles that really speak to the work that you're doing as a team in terms of what you're doing in the collaborative. So you'll have that space to still, identify really that process aim so that you can measure the process change that you're making within your overall process. Then we'll get to the measurement strategy piece, and for this piece, how will we know that a change is an improvement? We're going to look at three different pieces of data to tell us how we're doing on increasing program enrollment. We're going to look at the percent of families enrolled, so that's really going to be our outcome measure. We're going to look at the number of referrals received, so in thinking about between now and the 1st of December, how many referrals are received. And we're going to look at then the percent of referrals that are enrolled. So in thinking about, how many referrals we received, how many of those referrals did we actually enroll as a program within this time frame? Some measures that are simplistic enough that, they tell us what we need to know about the work that we're doing within this particular quality improvement PDSA cycle. Well, what changes can we make that will result in improvement? We are looking at that driver diagram, and in this case, the driver diagram that we looked at for this particular project, we are selecting the primary driver of really needing to develop a referral process, so have a process in place. We are deciding as a team that our secondary driver is really that referrals aren't being followed up on in a timely manner, as timely of a manner as we would hope as a program. And we're deciding that the key change we want to test out and try out is following up with a referral via phone within 5 working days of receipt. So really looking at a specific time frame for referral follow-up and seeing how that all plays out for us. So we've put our plan in place, and we're moving into really trying that out. So as a reminder, for our PDSA cycle, our plan is that the program manager is going to follow up with referrals received during November, so the month of November, within 5 working days. So any referrals that come in during the month of November, the program manager is going to follow up on those. So our test, during the due stage, we learned that during this time, the program manager followed up with 2 out of 3 referrals received within 5 working days. So there were a total of 3 referrals that came in, and 2 of those were followed up within the appropriate time manner. And 1 of those 3 referrals that came in was actually enrolled during this time frame. So with our data during the study portion of the PDSA cycle, we think to ourselves, okay, so we had a total of 3 referrals received. We know that we met our goal of following up with 5 of them, or following up with 2 of them within 5 working days. And we know that we enrolled 1 referral. Well, what does this really tell us? How do we want to act on this? So in this case, we decided that the process change definitely did show some success. We were able to follow up with 2 out of the 3 referrals within 5 working days. But we're not so sure as a team how realistic this is in terms of sustaining this improvement for a long-term basis. So we decided as a team, we're going to keep this change in place and for another month, and we're going to run another PDSA cycle and see what we find out in another month's time. So this will essentially give you an idea about what a Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle looks like. And I think really what I want to point out here is you're making a really small change, and we're going to really work with you all to think about what small changes can make and test out within a shortened time frame. So, what can you learn in a month? What can you learn in 6 weeks? So really thinking about a more shortened time frame for your Plan, Study, Act cycles, and really biting off a teeny tiny piece of the bigger puzzle that you're working to put together and look for improvement within. So the idea of what these small cycles look like over time as we move to the next slide, small cycles is really going to help us improvement and really build toward implementation. So thinking about, what changes do we really want to keep in place in our program that we really feel confident are going to continue to lead to the improvement that we saw through our small PDSA cycles. So this is just an example, but to give you an example of how small PDSA cycles can really work to build upon one another. So if we're working toward an aim statement of by September 1st, 2016, Michigan Home Visiting Initiative LAAs will increase the percent of open slots that are filled within 1 month. We are our change package, and we select the change that we want to follow up on referrals via phone within 5 working days of receipt. So that same change that we were working with before. You can see how we can break that into really small cycles to see how it can lead toward the improvement that we're working for. So our first cycle that happened in November could be that the local implementing agency revises the protocol for follow-up. So the protocol is revised to state that referrals need to be followed up on via phone within 5 working days of receipt. So that first cycle, what you're working on doing is actually revising the protocol. During the second cycle in December, we decide that the program manager is going to follow up with referrals via phone within 5 working days of receipt. So any referrals that come in during December, the program manager is working to follow up on those referrals within 5 working days of receipt. Cycle 3, you can see that we're actually running another PDSA cycle on the same change. So that tells us something that we found some promise in the method of following up within 5 working days within our first cycle, but we're not so sure that that's going to sustain improvement, so we're going to keep it going for a little bit longer. So we try it out for another month in January and see what we find out. To cycle 4 in February, we find out that we want a little change. We want to adapt what we've been doing and see how that works. So you can see that the program manager decides to assign referrals to home visitors, and the home visitors are actually the ones following up within the 5 working days of receipt. So passing off that responsibility to the home visitors within the program and seeing what that tells us about the change that we're putting in place, the change that we're testing out. So again, this is merely an example, but we wanted to give you an example to really show you some ideas behind small changes that you're going to be making with your quality improvement cycles, PDSA cycles that you're doing during the learning collaboratives. We want you to keep the changes small and think about, what can I learn in a shortened time frame that will keep us moving forward as a team. So I'm going to stop there, actually, because I have been talking for a really long time and given you lots and lots of information, and I'm sure that there are questions because I'm sure everything isn't crystal clear. So I'd like to pause for a few moments and take any questions that you all might have based on what we've covered up until this point.
Hi, Ryan?
Yes?
This is Elaine. Bradley, Babies, Healthy Families America. Will we get a copy of these slides?
You absolutely will. I am planning to send the slides out as well as post them to SharePoint and send the recording out just following this webinar. So you will get everything from today's webinar.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's an excellent question.
Robin, this is Lyons from Genesee EHS. Will you be telling us about how we'll be doing like team charters and storyboards to follow along with this new plan, do, study, act stages?
Will, and I can tell you, we're not going to get into that today. We'll definitely get into that at the first learning session, but we are going to tweak things a bit to make them more able for how the learning collaboratives are kind of unfolding this year, and we'll be doing some work on those pieces at the in-person meeting. So I would encourage you all not to worry about that piece right now, but that we will provide more guidance on that, and we're really trying to think about how we can streamline things so that they're as smooth as possible for all of you as you work through your QI work with the learning collaboratives this year. Great. Other questions? This is a lot to take in. So, you know, as you kind of sit on some of this information over the course of the next few days, if there are questions that come up after the webinar today, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am here to support you 100%. So please ask away if there are things that pop up that you would like to hear a little bit more about. So I'm going to go ahead and move on and share the timeline with you, which most of you will be very familiar with since we've already sent out the dates for the learning sessions. But right now we're really over on the far left of the screen, and we're doing our planning and pre-work right now, getting ready to kick these collaboratives off on November 12th, with the first learning session happening on November 12th. At Crossroads in Grand Rapids. And you should have all received an email yesterday with the registration information as well as the hotel information if you would like to make arrangements for overnight accommodations. Once the first learning session has concluded, we're going to be entering into our first action period. And during the action period, you all are going to be working on your PDSA cycles and submitting your monthly data and brief updates. We have reporting on here, but it's not going to be like a formal report or anything like that. I think I would conceptualize it more as updates on how things are going. We'll get to our second learning session in April on the 21st. And at that time, we will have an opportunity to come back together, do some collaborative learning, do lots of peer sharing about the great work that you've done in between, you know, when we did the first learning session and the second learning session, so during your first action period. We'll really be able to do a lot of learning from one another. Second learning session, we are going to enter our second action period, which again is where you'll be working on PDSA cycles and doing that monthly data reporting and updates, which will take us to our third learning session in September, which will happen on September 22nd. And that will really be time to celebrate all the great work that we've done together and you know, take that time to really look back on what we've done and what we've accomplished over the year. So that's just to give you a little bit of idea of the timeline that we're working under. So in terms of expectations, I told you I would tell you a little bit about what we, PHI, as well as with our partner at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services are working on to get ready for the Learning Collaborative. We are deep into working on developing the technical content. And by that, I mean the change packages. And again, we want to thank you so much for your expert input. It's been really helpful as we've been putting together these change packages for the Learning Collaborative. And we're also working on developing that measurement strategy to go along with each of the change packages. And again, there won't be any more than 8 measures per collaborative. Ideally, we would love to aim for 5. So we're kind of really trying hard to think about what do we need to measure in order to tell us something about the work that's going on that you all are doing. Also working on planning the learning sessions. So, you know, making sure we have good plans in place for our time together. we will be reviewing the monthly data and updates that you share with us, and we'll be sharing those back with you. So in a minute here, we'll talk about that piece, and you'll see that once you submit everything, we're actually going to be put together a tool that we can send back out to you so that you can see all of the monthly collaborative updates that were shared, and you can continue to learn and connect with one another over time. And of course, we'll be providing support during the action periods at any time. We're to guide you, support you, provide coaching, just help you move your work along in whatever way we possibly can. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to us as you have needs that arise. Expectations for the local implementing agencies. We are expecting you all as a team to attend and participate in all 3 in-person learning sessions, which take place at the Michigan Homesteading Initiative grantee meetings. And again, I can't stress the importance of having your team present at these meetings. We really do a lot of work together at these meetings, and we're really going to focus in on you all being able to get good work done for your projects, because we know you all are very busy people, and that having the time and space to do that work can be challenging. So we really want to make this time valuable for everyone. So it is very important that you attend these learning sessions. Also, are expecting that you complete 2 action periods. So again, during this action periods, you are conducting small PDSA cycles. So really thinking about what small changes can you make in a shortened time frame, and see how that affects your measures as a program. The ongoing data collection and updates. So those will both happen on a monthly basis. With both pieces, we're going to ask that you submit on the 15th of each month. So we're just going to keep the date consistent over time. So by the 15th of each month, you should submit your data and updates to myself. You'll be submitting them to me, I should say that, so that that's clear. And it will reflect the previous month's work. So for example, in December, when you submit data, in your update, you're going to reflect the work that you did in November. So, we won't be asking you to report on what you're doing that month. It'll be for the previous month. Ask that you report or you review the monthly updates that we send out. So you'll send us everything by the 15th. Everything we receive by the 15th, we will organize into a summary so that you all can really look through those updates and see where you might want to make connections with other programs. And we'll send that summary out no later than the 30th of each month. So you'll get it in a pretty quick turnaround, timely manner. So that way, if there are people you want to connect with or resources that you'd like to share, you can make those connections with one another. We also want you to reach out for support, guidance, and coaching as you need. Don't ever hesitate to let me know when you need some help, and we can, exchange emails. We can talk on the phone. I can call into a team meeting. There's all sorts of ways we can provide that support, guidance, and coaching over time. So know that we are here to support you. So the pre-work. There are 2 things that we are going to ask you to do before you come to the in-person meeting on November 12th. And the first piece is letting us know which collaborative you want to participate in. So following today's webinar, I'm going to send out an email with the 2 collaboratives, and I'm going to ask that your team continue to think about which collaborative you might want to participate in. I know some of you have already done a lot of thinking around this, so you may already know, but I'm going to ask that you send me an email back by close of business on Monday, October 26th. Let me know what collaborative your team would like to participate in this year. I will in turn, by close of business on Wednesday, October 28th, send out a list that contains who's participating in the collaborative focused on enrollment and who's participating in the collaborative focused on retention. So you'll receive confirmation of the collaborative that you are participating in, along with being able to see others that are participating in that collaborative, so you can begin to think about connections that you might want to make. So that's the first piece of pre-work. The second piece we want you to think about is putting together a process map of your current process before you come to the meeting. So you're not going to start working on this until you know which collaborative you're participating in, obviously, because you'll want to think about what process is really at the heart of the work that you need to do within that collaborative. And we'll ask you to put a process map together. Now, I know that sometimes documenting process maps electronically and such can be a challenge. So you can document it electronically. If your team creates your process map on, a whiteboard or uses Post-it notes and chart paper, or however you decide to do it together, you are welcome to A, bring that with you if you can bring it with you, or B, you can take a picture of it, whatever works best for your team. If it works to really sit down as a team and think about what the steps of the process are in order and list those out, you can do that. All we're asking is that you take a little bit of time and space, and it doesn't have to be a ton of time, but to really step back and think about what is the current process and document that current process and have some discussion as a team about where you might need to do some more work in that process, where you see areas for improvement. And what we'll want you to do is bring that map and the notes that you make from your team discussion to the first learning session on November 12th, because that's going to really help you move your work along that day during our time together. 2 pieces of pre-work, so letting me know which collaborative you want to participate in, and putting together a process map to bring with you to the first meeting on November 12th. So here again and see questions you might have.
Hi, Elaine again. In regards to the submission to you guys or to you on the 15th of each month, what type of format would that have to be in?
That question. So the piece about measurement and the update. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put together a form, and it's likely going to be in Excel. We're going to send it to you, and all you're going to do is plug your numbers in. It will create charts for you so that you can visually also see what your data are looking like, and there will be space for you to provide a brief update. So it'll be a form that you just fill in and send back.
Okay, because you're challenged over here, so.
I know, and I am here to provide support. So if things pop up, we can work through those challenges.
Oh, thank you.
Very welcome. Other questions? I'm fortunate to have 2 teams on the phone today who have participated in the home visiting coin during phase 1, and they have some lessons learned, I'm sure, from putting small tests of improvement in place and kind of working with this model a little bit more in-depthly since they've been doing that. And we have 3 more teams on the phone today that are participating in phase 2 and getting ready to work with this model. So I don't know if there's anything around that piece that you all might want to ask of each other or talk about on the call today either. Or tricks other teams who have done this can offer to the larger group.
This is from Kent County. I would just say that doing rapid change cycles is quite a bit different way of doing this quality improvement than what we're used to, and it does take a bit of adjustment. So just give yourself time and be patient, since you're having to try something new every month instead of just working through one particular area and refining it each time. You're being innovative and you're trying something new each time, and that can get a little bit frustrating to your frontline staff, since a lot of times the changes that you implement impact them directly the most. And so just give them some grace and yourself some grace as you take in the learning curve of doing these very fast, because I think that it can be overwhelming, and but it all does work out after you practice it for a little bit. At least we're not doing them in 2-week cycles. That's what COIN makes you do.
No, Brandy, I think that that's a really good and important point to bring up. And I will say that, you know, the example that we provided definitely does show, like, so trying something new each month. But, you know, we're not going to exactly specify the exact time frame that your cycle needs to be. So I think that on a team-by-team basis, I can definitely work with you in thinking about what is realistic for what you're working on. So, you know, I think that there may be some cycles that last 6 weeks. There may be some things that you do that get done rather quickly and, you know, last for a shorter time period. And, you know, I can work with you all on a team-by-team basis to really think about that. But necessarily putting the specific expectation out that you do a new cycle every month, or that you know, do a certain number of cycles within each action period. I think that, you know, we're going to work to tailor that a little bit to each team, and so we can help you through that piece. But it is an adjustment, and I think that, Brandy, you make some really good points for the group to consider. So much. A question come in from Rita, and she says, when selecting our topic, which set of data should we be looking at to make the decision? That is an excellent question. So I think all of you are pretty well aware of your enrollment data, the enrollment data that you have. I also know that the consultants with each of your models have contacted you about your enrollment data as well as your retention data. If for some reason you haven't been connected to that in a little bit, and you want to kind of know what your numbers are, please, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cynthia, but please, you know, feel free to reach out to Cynthia if you're an HFA program, or feel free to reach out to Lynn if you're an early Head Start program, and get the latest up-to-date information from them as well. But another good place to look back to would be the enrollment data that we have on the quarterly CQI reports, which your most recent reports would have come out a couple months ago by now. So that probably doesn't paint a very good picture of where you are. But I would encourage you to look at your current enrollment data. So what are your enrollment data telling you right now, as well as the retention data that you have. So, you know, how long are families staying in your program? When seems to be the tipping point? And with that tipping point, you know, how would you want to approach that in terms of working on keeping families engaged? Does that help answer your question, Rita?
Thanks.
You're most welcome. Thank you for asking that. That's a great question for everybody. Questions, comments?
Right.
Yes?
This is Cynthia, and I just wanted to point out that I think that Wendy Stafford could also be an excellent resource and support for sites as they work through this process. I know that she's started to reach out to a number of different programs and helping them think about and have further conversation around this exact topic, and I think that she could also be a great resource as they're working through this next project.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for bringing that up. And yes, I know Wendy has touched base with some of you, but if you haven't touched base with Wendy and you think that that would be helpful for your team, I would encourage you to reach out to Wendy and do so. Wendy is on the line today, as you all heard, but, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to Wendy as a resource as well to help you kind of think through the story that your data are telling you and where you might want to focus your efforts in this coming year. And thank you, Wendy, for your willingness to support that piece. All right. Well, go ahead and kind of dive into our last few slides as a group here today. So just wanted to put a reminder out there about the Michigan Home Visiting Initiative QI requirements. Most of you are super familiar with these, but I know that we have some newer teams. So being that it's the beginning of the fiscal year, it's always a good time to repeat this information. So again, the expectations are that you actively conduct continuous quality improvement in 2 different areas. So we expect that each local implementing agency participates in one QI Learning Collaborative per fiscal year. So those are the learning collaboratives that we're getting ready to kick off. And we also expect that you either complete two local implementing agency specific QI projects, or you participate in the home visiting COIN. So depending on where your team is, if you are a COIN team, then your COIN participation fulfills this two specific QI project requirement. Not a COIN team, then you're going to do two small CQI projects on your own in areas where you see opportunity for improvement within your program. And one of the pieces that can really help you target areas for improvement are the quarterly CQI data reports that we send out. And for those programs that are newer, you will start receiving those, and they will have some data in them very soon, since you all have some families enrolled now and are getting to the point where we can provide you good data back. So you will start getting those, but those are a good resource for you to look at when you're looking for areas for improvement for your specific projects. That you conduct regular internal CQI team meetings, and again, these do not have to be separate meetings from other meetings that you are holding. If you have a standing meeting that happens on a regular basis, feel free to incorporate CQI into that meeting. Don't feel like you have to have a special meeting for CQI, but you should be checking in on a regular basis. We are going to ask that you submit your CQI work. So for the QI Learning Collaborative piece, we'll have that monthly update piece, so the data and project updates, and then we'll do some PDSA cycle summaries, which we'll tell you more about at the in-person meeting that we're having on the 12th, that first learning session. For the LA specific work, again, the two requirements are your team charters and storyboards for the projects that you work on. And we have due dates set throughout the year, those dates being January 15th, April 15th, July 15th, and October 15th. And again, you can feel free to start your LA specific projects when works best for you, and complete those projects at a pace that makes sense. But I would encourage you, please reach out to me if I can be helpful in helping you think about where you want to start, thinking about what data you need to collect or look at, thinking about how long your project should take, scaling your project down to something that's manageable, whatever it might be. And you are feel free to contact me at any time. You don't have to wait until the due dates to submit your materials. If you start a project next month and you want me to take a peek at your team charter, just send it on my way. Doing things on a continuous basis rather than waiting to the due date is totally fine with me, and I'm happy to provide support, throughout each time period. So don't hesitate to reach out before that. And lastly, we expect that you participate in the CQI Community of Learning webinars. And you can see that we have set the webinar dates for this entire year. And we're going to do something a little bit different this year. We're actually going to bring all the LAs together. So we've been holding calls separately for HFA, EHS, and then holding one for the Nurse-Family Partnership programs, but we're actually going to move to a format of holding one webinar for everyone, and each webinar will focus on something specific, a topic or something that you all want to talk about or you want some more training and TA on. We will kind of develop those things just in time, but we will be coming together as a larger group on the webinars. Okay. So from us, I kind of already talked about all of these pieces, but remember, we will provide a comprehensive review of your CQI documentation and feedback. We'll do this with the first complete draft that you send us. Any additional drafts that you'd like us to take a peek at, you'll just have to reach out and let me know. But I will definitely complete a comprehensive review of your first complete draft of anything that you send along. And we've kind of listed out those specific pieces again that I just walked through for each of you. And for those programs that are participating in the COIN, I do have access to the COIN site, and I can look at the things that you upload to the site. So you don't have to worry about submitting any of your COIN work to me. I will just log on and check in on a regular basis and reach out if there's anything that I think that I can be helpful with for your team. Of course, be providing ongoing guidance and coaching. So just let me know when you need some help. Don't hesitate to reach out. Don't sit and be stuck for a little while. Really reach out when the time is right for your team and let me know how I can be supportive of your work. So in next steps and reminders, to kind of just cover everything that we've gone over today, we are going to ask that you complete your CQI Learning Collaborative pre-work. So the first will be really selecting the collaborative you want to participate in and sending that to me via email in response to the email that I send out. Doing your process map and having discussion around the process map prior to that November 12th meeting. Also, you might want to note the monthly data and project update due dates on your calendars since that date will stay consistent. So the first one will happen in December on the 15th, and then there'll be the 15th of the month thereafter until the learning collaboratives end in September. That you begin your LA specific or your HV coin work for FY16. So if you want some help getting started on any of that, please hesitate to reach out. Have the quarterly CQI documentation webinar dates, and again, I'll send this webinar out right following, or these slides out following the webinar so that you have it all in written format too. You'll want to note those on your team's calendars and attend the first grantee meeting, which is on November 12th. It'll take place from 9:30 to 3:30, and it'll be at Crossroads Banquet and Conference Center in Grand Rapids. We have a good question, one good question that just popped up asking what the home visiting coin is. So the home visiting coin is the Home Visiting Quality Improvement and Innovations Network. And basically what it is it's a national effort for quality improvement work. They are using the same model that we're using for learning collaboratives. So there are 4 different learning collaboratives going on with the Home Visiting coin during this phase 2. Those being a collaborative focusing on maternal depression, a collaborative focusing on breastfeeding, collaborative focusing on developmental screening and surveillance, and collaborative focus on family engagement. So we have altogether 7 teams from Michigan who are participating in this national quality improvement learning collaborative, which is called the Home Visiting Coin. Hopefully it answers the coin question to some extent. That's the very brief version of what the coin is. For today, we are at the end of our time together. Are there any further questions or anything you want to hear a little bit more about before we close out? I do have my contact information on the last slide of the webinar. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's anything that I can be supportive of for your work. Okay, not hearing anything, and I'm not seeing anything more in the chat. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you all for your time today and attention. I will be sending you an email shortly with the information, and I look forward to seeing you all on November 12th. Thanks so much.